How's everybody doing? Christine, how are you? So there's a lot to giving a good golf lesson. We're all trying to do the best we can. I mean, I think good cause and effect knowledge would be critical. You know, good knowledge of drills, those sorts of things. Do we consider sometimes the mental components of how people are on their end of it when they approach learning? Got to figure out how to do this. My daughter prepared this for me yesterday. One of the things is just not assuming stuff about the way they think. This is one thing. Each swing is different. That's why I have different outcomes. Most people think that. You watch them hit a really bad shot. What did I do there? You did the same thing you always do. You just didn't hit that one solidly. That is the reality. So when they think that every swing is different, their swing is completely unstable, that's just an erroneous belief and it doesn't help. Does the brain store motor programs in a way that's completely haphazard and unstable? You go to tie your shoes, it's totally different than the other time you did it? Absolutely not. How about this one? When I think a new swing thought, my swing actually changes in a direct correspondence to what I was just thinking. Anybody here think that's true? Jim, do you think that's true? No. They think that, though. Let me try this. Let me whack. Was that good? Look just like the other swings you made. Now, you don't say that to them. You're trying to be their friend. You're trying to be friendly. They don't realize, so they don't know what they're up against. This has only got 7 slides, so we've got probably 4 minutes to go here, but I'll do the best I can. Get an early lunch. Find out what's in their head. These are mistakes I still make, I've made so much of. You know, the human being, pretty incredible what people can do with tools and objects. People do stuff all the day, the toothbrush, the broom, the mop, the this, the that. It's pretty incredible what people can do. So some of the things they do with the golf club would show you maybe they don't know what they're doing. Why don't you ask them, okay, you hit a lot of thin shots. Why do you think that happens? We've done this, right, Christine? It's interesting to hear what they think. You know, so find out before you go in and say, why don't you keep your knee more still or shift your weight or feel like your shoulder does that. Sorry, I'm not a professional microphone user here. Why don't you ask them what they think? It's interesting to know what's in their mind. Don't assume that their general concepts are very sound. Again, people have an incredible ability to work with tools and objects. The mind, the body is pretty unbelievable. What is their concept of the downward hit? Most people I talk to think the more you hit down, the higher the ball goes. That's not true. You have to hit fractionally down if there's no tee under the ball to get a solid hit, but that isn't true at all. Their conceptions of where the low point is in the golf swing. Middle of the divot's true low point should be about 5-6 inches, 4 or 5 inches in front of the ball. Is that about right, Bob? Certainly in front of the ball. Impact versus address loft. Like most people, I do some YouTube videos and some things like that. I did one recently about club design, not club design, but the differences between maybe hitting a 5-iron and a pitching wedge and some of the shaft lean characteristics you might want to have. And I was basically telling people, when you hit a pitching wedge in normal conditions, you need to have the shaft leaning forward at impact. And I got more letters saying, why would I possibly do that? I mean, why wouldn't I just take a different lofted club, or doesn't that distort the loft of the club? Well, you would do that so you could apply pressure to the ball and you could tilt the sweet spot towards the ball, and so that when the shaft's leaning and you hit the ball, the true low point is beyond contact. We all know that, but people's concept of what they're trying to do is very bad. And if you get someone with their human mind, so of course that's what they have, and they have really, really poor concepts and information gaps, and you just sort of pile in there and start saying, hey, why don't we do this and that, you might save yourself a lot of time and energy if you sort of find those out and clear those up for them. Deceleration patterns. I ask people all the time, when great players go through impact, Are they accelerating? Are they staying about the same rate? Let's talk about the golfer, not the club. Same rate of speed, what are they doing? Most people say accelerating. That's not true. Great players decelerate so that the club accelerates, so they transfer energy. So the very concept of how they're trying to create speed, for example, is flawed. So if you're dealing with someone that has bad thinking patterns, your best, shortest remedy, or at least it's a good start, is to try to address those things. Don't just assume that they're doing that. There's all sorts of things. Holding the angle. I mean, you should hold the angle, but it should be a dynamic thing. It's not just trying to hold the angle, stuff like that. So get into people's head. If you had money to invest and a guy or gal that was considering being your investment person had very little business knowledge, clouded incorrect concepts of how the market works, and every time that ticker had a little move up or down, had a hugely visceral emotional reaction to that, would you invest your money with them? I don't think so. That's how people approach golf, though. Bad concepts, bad ideas, overreaction to every single shot in terms of some significance. Really important to help people develop, can you read that? An understanding of their pattern. This kind of goes back to page 1. In my years working for David Ledbetter, this started 30 years ago. And in those days, there was only one academy. It was the Orlando Academy. So I was lucky I got to assist David a lot and be around there. I'd known him years before because I took lessons from him. It's kind of how I wormed my way into a job there. But one of the things, if you said to Nick Price or Charles Howell or Nick Faldo or someone that he taught a lot, what's the deal with your golf swing? Every one of those people could say, oh, well, I get the thing here, and when I get this way, I do too much of that, and then I get stuck and either this or that happens. In other words, they'd know their pattern. Now, for me, invariably, if I struggle, I'll get more tilt than I need, my hips slide a bit, and I just wind up upper body back, picking the ball a little bit too much, maybe hooking it a little bit. At least I know what my pattern is. So one of the things, even the best of players don't necessarily feel their swing accurately out in the heat of battle on the golf course. I mean, do you always know exactly what you did in your swing when you play? It's nice if you have a good feel for it. If you know your pattern, you can begin to judge a little bit. So in other words, for me, if I'm out there playing or hitting balls, starting to pick it a little bit clean, not squeezing down on it enough, ball starting to push a little bit, I know that I'm too far behind the ball with my upper body. That's just me, because that's always what it looks like when I struggle. Christine, we've been working on some stuff. Come on up, Christine. So people should know their patterns. Now, that doesn't mean they'll know that in the first lesson, but you want people to be savvy to that. Anyone disagree or have a snide remark you want to make? I've got plenty of those online. I've got plenty of gross criticisms, vicious criticisms. My daughter's an art history major, so she was in college. Everybody recognize that? Probably the most famous sculpture in the world, right? Michelangelo's David. Is it pliable? It's beautiful. Not too pliable. If you had to move his hips or legs, it's not going to happen. So when the mind is in the wrong place, it's very difficult to move people. This is some stuff. Create a learning environment. Again, back in those Ledbetter days, it was exciting for me. It wasn't like I was a novice teacher at the time. I was probably 26 or 7 when I went to work for David, but all of a sudden here you're around, and he didn't only teach tour pros, but here you're around tour pros and things. It's kind of fun. And you'd see some player, working on a certain sort of thing. Tour pros are pretty good at that. I mean, they're skilled. And you think, wow, that looks pretty good, whatever. Then, first tee US Open. Is the new swing the one that shows up? No. Instinct. Anybody here do martial arts? I've never done it, so you correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes you learn certain movement patterns, a new kick or a whatever it is that they learn. How do you think they would do if, while they're trying to learn that, you put someone in front of them that's trying to smash their teeth in? Not too good, right? You don't do that. You go away on the mat to the side. So the more you create an environment, you don't have to create it. They'll create it for you, where outcome is crucial. I have to get a good shot. If I don't get a good shot, I'm failing. You're not a good teacher. Ultimately, obviously, we want that. But the more that they're trying, that their whole currency is how solid is this next shot, the more resistance to change you'll find. Just like the tour pro, very talented, not under duress, not going to change under duress. So you don't want that. We'll get into that a little bit more. What is a speed and scale they could do something on? We all know that. Hey, if this movement, we're assuming that the thing you're having them work on is the right thing to do or a good thing to do and that they can physically do it. Let's assume that, but probably not at full speed. So if it's impact, what's a size swing they could make that they would see something different? If it's something with their swing, whatever, you can figure it out. What's a speed or a scale you could make a difference at? Don't just camp out at full speed. If you're going full speed every time, first to US Open kind of conditions in terms of I have to get a good outcome, that's about what the change will look like right there. What would you, we could go on with these examples. Your 15-year-old, you got boys, right, Bob? First time they ever try go I-75 rush hour? Don't think so. How about, how many of you here know who Michael Hebron is? Do you know Michael Hebron? Brilliant guy. I'm lucky enough to have spent some time around him. One of the things do you ever read his book called Play Golf to Learn Golf? It's about that thick. Could probably get the cliff notes. I'll give you the cliff notes right now. What's that?
He's a brain guy.
Oh, Mike's a brain guy. He's a bright guy. Mike took some Teacher of the Year, PGA National Teacher of the Year many years ago, written some really interesting books on the golf swing. He's smart, this guy. He went to, Mike's got a few extra dollars and he's kind of a iconoclast. He likes to butt against the system. So took some motor programming courses online at some top universities and came away with an interesting conclusion, which is really what the book is all about. How many people here have kids? Sorry, my microphone skills aren't that great. Okay, lots of people. I have a kid too. When they're learning to walk, 18 months, something like that, 12, 14 months, language skills aren't necessarily that good. They know what to do. They've watched you walk. You give them a little help or whatnot. Now it's their turn to try. Boom, down they go. Any of you ever had a kid that fell 100% of the time for the first 3 months on the same side? If you did, you would have a neurological exam performed on them because it'd be mental. It doesn't work that way. They fall roughly an equal amount both sides. So the point relative to Mike's dissertation or studies that he did, the way we're designed to learn motor programs is we learn very, very broad distinctions and gradually make them more narrow. So the kid falls here, the kid falls there. Week later, there are a couple of steps. They're still falling both sides, but they're getting better at it. So the brain is designed to go from broad distinctions to narrow distinctions. Most people you teach that slice the ball, which is most people, right? Do they hit an equal amount of slices and hooks, or do they pretty much always slice it and sometimes get close to neutral? Right?
Yeah.
So that's not good. That's not going to help you progress. That's not how you're designed to learn. As do you know who Fred Shoemaker is? He's one of my favorites. Does anyone know who he is? I think he's brilliant. I forget whether this was in a book or a school I was helping him do. He said to the group, he said, squirrels are amazing climbers. Anybody disagree with that? Everybody believes that. Put that squirrel in a swimming race and see how it does. Terrible. It's not designed to swim. So when you take your brain and you do it and you use it in the wrong ways, you will retard progress. So adults, they don't come to a motor programming thing like golf, They don't come there with a free attitude of let's make mistakes both sides. The only thing they do is if I do it right, I'm getting better, right? So every swing tends to be, or every mistake tends to be of a certain kind, because they're only trying for neutral, they're not trying to do the other thing, and they just gradually get slightly closer to curing the problem they have. You would speed, and listen, you're not going to be able to get everyone to do this. I'm not saying I can get everyone to do this. If someone really said, okay, I've sliced it for 10 years, I'm open to the fact of going to the range with a 7-iron, hitting it 60 yards, and trying to see how low and left I can make it go. Most people won't do that. But if they did, they'd fix that slice a lot quicker than if they just try to hit good shots at full speed. Sound fair? Let's see if I can remember the button. Ways we often foster a bad learning environment. I've done this so much, I still struggle with some of these things. We're talking about the coach. Praise all good shots and criticize after every bad shot. First off, someone happens to hit one right in the middle of the club face. Does that definitively mean they did a good swing and they did what they're trying to do? Of course not. So why say it if it's not true, right? Secondly, conversely, bad shot. They may have done a little bit more like what you wanted them to and not hit it very solidly. So if every time, see, here's the problem with it. It bolsters that need they have for a good outcome. You don't have to train them to want to get a good outcome. So we've already said if their mind is committed to, I have to get a decent shot or I failed. You're a bad teacher, I'm a bad student. They're very difficult to work with in any meaningful way. It stifles progress. It's like the pro on the first tee of the US Open. So if every time they hit a good shot, you say, well done, and every time they're bad, okay, you still, all that does is subconsciously make them more and more aware, I have to get good shots. I have to get it right. And again, when they're in that framework, they're harder to work with, harder to move. Does that make sense? Notice how many students, for me it's 100%, their reaction to a really good or bad shot is immediate and it's full of just flush one. Oh, some good, before the ball's landed, they're celebrating. Really terrible shot off the toe sideways. Oh, I don't know, some sort of excuse there like that. 3 reasons that's bad. Well, we've already shown you. They're too committed to, I have to get a good outcome. Now, we want good outcomes, obviously, but if their pattern doesn't change, will they really have anything that's meaningful and long-lasting? No. Bad information doesn't help. The things they come up with sometimes, come on, Bob, he didn't turn or something. You say, okay, didn't turn shoulders, hips, we're talking backswing, downswing, no clear distinction. It's just, they just come up with these visceral reactions. So darkening counsel, bad information. It doesn't help them when they have these reactions. Again, this kind of reaction tells you, when they have that kind of reaction to really good and bad shots, it just tells you that they're locked in that. I have to get a good outcome at full speed going for neutral. Anything less is unacceptable. You will find them very hard to move around and make much progress if they do that. Their reactions to shots rob them of the feel in their swing. See Nick Faldo there? Over the years, I got to be around, he wouldn't know me from this cut right here, but I got to be around Nick a fair bit assisting David. And it wasn't he's super good. He's a big guy. He's won 6 majors. So I remember one time we were doing this golf school, and David's a pretty funny guy, and he's clicking it. And he brings Faldo up. This is probably 1995 or something like that. Maybe it was late 90s. So this one guy says 17 handicap or something. He says, I don't know. He said to David, he says, Faldo, to me, he's too technical. David says to him, you wouldn't mind being technical if you won 6 majors, would you? And he said, no, I guess not. But Nick was just amazingly, as I look at it, as I've learned more now, he's an amazingly gifted guy, obviously for golf, but gifted at his body and the swing. And I can tell you with Nick, many's the time I've seen him, let's say they're working on club face more open at the top or something. Nick hits a shot. Still felt to me like the club face was this way. Not distracted by the outcome. The outcome was probably good anyway. Very able to feel something in his swing. Fred Shoemaker, I think he's kind of a brilliant guy. Been lucky enough to be around him a little bit. One of the things he says is interesting. When you're trying to feel something in your swing, I mean, it's your arms, your legs, right? You should be able to feel it. It's physical club in space. You close someone's eyes and hand them a broom handle and have them hold it. They'll be able to describe to you where it is. Can anybody in this room, if you quiet your mind, can you feel the pressure of the chair against your rear end? Maybe it's more on one side, the other, how your pants feel. If you really quiet your mind and put it down there, you can feel a lot going on down there. Can you feel that, everyone? Something specific, maybe the way your elbow feels on the chair leg, chair arm, or whatever it is. So we have a lot of access to feel, but not if our mind is packed with other things. You've all been sitting there for an hour or so, but you haven't felt any of that because you're busy doing other things. So when you're trying to work on something in your swing, let's say, is my weight more to the left, or my arms more across, whatever it is, could be one of 100 things. One of the things Fred's taught me, let's say it's backswing and my hand's here or here, whack, ball's off the club. It takes your mind second and a half to evaluate and download what you felt. Does that sound reasonable? This kills that. When you have a strong reaction to the shot and you go right into outcome and all this stuff, make up some story that probably isn't true, come back over here and do this, that's gone. You've lost that feel. It doesn't sit there like a piece of cheese in the fridge ready for you whenever you're going to get to it. You have to have your mind pretty empty and quiet in order to feel subtle things like your rear end on the chair. You could probably feel your watch strap against your skin. It's amazing what the mind can do, but not if it's panic-stricken, making up stories, reacting to shots. You just don't get any feel. So it's bad information. It, again, bolsters that tendency to always try for a good shot. And it takes away the freedom and the feel in the swing. I'm not saying I can get most people to quiet their mind and do that stuff, but the better you use your mind,